New Mexico comes up at the bottom of another list, and this time it has to do with nursing home care. According to a report by the journalism group ProPublica, we have the highest number of reported deficiencies on a per nursing home basis in the country. The study found that nearly half of all nursing homes in the state reported serious deficiencies. And Tom, we're talking about more than 2,200 complaints. And of those, most of them were minor, but 115 were serious enough to earn a very bad designation here. Were you surprised by this? I mean, we were talking earlier, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence out there about a lot of chatter about nursing homes. Did this surprise you?
It was surprising, actually, because it's an industry you don't really kind of hear that much about unless you have a loved one who's, in a senior home or receiving some type of care along those lines. And so it doesn't get a whole lot of coverage on the top line. What really kind of surprised me were the different perspectives you have one statewide association appearing to be tone deaf and another organization saying that, this is really the worst thing ever. And so you really had two different extremes of saying, oh, there's no problems, and the other saying there are problems. And I think Marie Baca with the Albuquerque Journal did a very good job in providing resources as a part of her story for people to go and take a look at, either the ProPublica, story or the Medicare website. And I went to both of them, and I found them both to be very useful.
Right. We should say Marie Baca, Marie C. Baca. Poor woman's always confused with all the other Marie Bacas around town. That C is very important for her to. We got you covered, girl. Medicaid and Medicare came up from Tom just now. Most of our places are under this system. Is that part of the problem here? Is that what's part of the issue here?
My sense is that it is, that reimbursements under those two programs are not sufficient, at least according to the nursing homes, and it sounds like the groups who watch them, not sufficient to keep staffing at the levels that it needs to be, and therefore that affects the level of care that everyone gets. That strikes me as something that is a very concrete issue. It's something that the state could take a look at, and certainly state has a certain amount of control over those dollars. So I'd like to see some.
Well, the reimbursement thing is tricky, though, isn't it? I mean, it's a matter of degrees. At 2%, 3% doesn't sound like much of a difference, but it can be a huge difference.
It can be a huge difference in the volume. Yeah. One of the things that really struck me about the complaints, going back to something that Tom mentioned, is yes, many of the complaints are sort of minor complaints, but I think of them as kind of the canary in the coal mine. Right. Someone doesn't have his colostomy drug or his insulin changed. What else is not happening?
That's right.
And that raises real questions for me about issues like checklisting and how much diligence is being asserted in a particular area.
Zach, when you think about folks I know, probably you too, you hear about their parents in a facility, and Tom made a good point. If your parent is in one of those facilities, it's a whole different ballgame, isn't it? It's not theory anymore. This is about life and death stuff and getting good service, especially because you're paying a lot of money in a lot of nursing homes as well. But the association, as previously mentioned, feels, there are some of the quotes, maybe I'll read here, they feel like they're on the right track. Did you catch that the same way as what they're saying?
Not exactly. Not if we're not meeting the national standard of care, and we're not able to tackle this issue head on and be able to say, okay, we're providing protection for the most vulnerable folks in our communities that need a voice and need to be able to have a very specific set of care. For me, it's a little bit of a cultural difference here. My folks will live with me when they're older. I will not put them in a nursing home, and that's just a Hispanic thing. But for the folks that are going through this process, we have to ensure that they are being put in the best possible standard of care that they can be in.
Recently, the Trump administration, Mary, relaxed rules on some nursing home regulations by reducing some of the fines they can be charged for problems in service, like we're seeing here. That seems to be run counter to fixing the problem, doesn't it? Or am I missing something, or do you see this another way too? The industry loves it. They're saying this relieves burdens on paperwork and stuff. Should the public be just as happy?
Well, I mean, I think that's a common theme within the Trump administration, to loosen or to kind of scale back some regulations. I mean, I think that I think that could be, certainly there's a lack of concern, and there's so much public money involved with paying for care in these facilities, so that becomes certainly an issue if your family member is in there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
but yeah, go ahead.
No, it's great. So I do want to touch on one thing, and that is we are aging here in our state, across the country certainly, but in our state as well.
I was thinking that, yeah.
2030 predicted we're going to be the fourth oldest
I know,
state, literally in time. 2030 is like nothing.
How long has it been since we've said the baby boomers are coming, the baby boomers are coming? But that's true.
Yeah.
The baby boomers are entering into care. They're going to assisted living. They're, not just the first wave.
That's right.
Not all.
Yep.
But that's a giant demographic group. It's a group that has had a lot of market power. And the question is, will they maintain that market power as they're spending down their assets in order to be able to better afford care? They're aging and they're moving into facilities, et cetera. We certainly see construction of senior communities and things like that. So there's a certain amount of catering that's happening to that demographic, but we still have this problem. When you are at your most vulnerable,
that's right.
What will the care be like?
That's right.
And as those numbers increase, are we equipped in New Mexico? Do we have enough oversight for the facilities we have? Will there be more facilities? I did just hear there's a facility, an assisted living facility up in Santa Fe that's planning on expanding. How will that growth happen in order to accommodate all those things?
I'm so glad you brought that up because that allows me to go, Tom, I'm going to start with you, another direction on this. And that is what Sophie's talking about, planning for the future. And should this be a topic maybe even in the governor's race? If we've got this kind of a tidal wave coming, we need to get after this like right now to get ready for it. Not in 2029, the year before, but right now. Is it a worthy topic, a leadership topic for a governor right now?
It is.
Okay.
I mean, the topic of workforce development, I think, is a worthy topic because you need to be able to, how are you going to staff these different facilities?
Good point.
But I think the larger case of do you make the case for Albuquerque or New Mexico as one of these centrals, as one of these hubs? I don't think so because of the altitude is really a big issue, which is one reason why Phoenix, being at sea level versus us at a mile high, has really blossomed. So I'm not sure that this is a growth industry for New Mexico. I think it is an issue though that you do need planning for because you have our residents who do need to be taken care of.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
That's right.
I'll be super quick. I just based on it being a state issue versus whether the federal oversight is needed from earlier. But Sophie was saying, I think the story that the journal kind of leaps off of from ProPublica gets into how much oversight the state does have. It compares Texas fines at an incident fine in Texas versus California, where it's quite a bit higher.
Right.
So in that way, it could start to become more of a state issue.
Is it time for some kind of reform call? I'm saying, hold on, Zach, real quick. But is it time or in our legislature? Is there anything we can do, from that end of the world to solve this?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an issue that the legislature could tackle. There are so many.
Well, that's a good point there.
Yeah, so they have to pick some priorities.
That's right. Sorry, Zach, go ahead, please.
That's where I think the laws need to adapt to service the economy we're going to inherit.
Right.
And it's going to happen in a very short time frame. And with that, that's who's going to be holding the bag here specifically.
That's right.
It's going to be also our age demographics and very much focusing on what specialized standards of care we're meeting. I think the three largest sectors of the economy that are going to grow, and this is from labor force studies that I had to do back when I was working at the city of Santa Fe, is both healthcare and specialized healthcare,
That's right.
meeting specialized needs within specific healthcare, right? Education, and the exodus of government employees. People talk a lot about STEM, and it's very great to have high-paying jobs in New Mexico, but the bread and butter and the bedrock of the foundation of the basic income level that we need to meet around above 43,000, I don't like being at the poverty level, is to be able to fill these three sectors of our economy. And that's going to happen in the next 10 years when it comes to healthcare. So we got to be able to offer a career pathway straight into those three sectors.
When I think about some of the things going on around town for our seniors that's working, the first thing that comes to mind is the Sawmill Project. There's a couple of senior things down there, and what they're trying to do, and this is actually very progressive, it's very interesting, is put these facilities in literally the middle of a neighborhood. So they become part of the neighborhood. Folks, elders who are out walking, get a little air, they don't have... Right, no. But you see neighbors and friends and kids, and they become part of the help of walking you and getting groceries for you. Do you see what I mean? Make it very organic. So my question, is this something, actually I'll start with you, Soph, perhaps even the city can attack as a planning thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, they can attack it through zoning. They can.
That's right.
They can look at where they're placing financing and finances, I should say. Yeah, there are definitely opportunities there.
Right.
I think the Sawmill project is a nice example. I mean, to a certain extent, what it feels like is how do we recreate some of what we see in larger cities with denser population, where the person living next to you, you're kind of keeping an eye out for them, they're keeping an eye out for you, that kind of thing.
Isn't that funny, Tom? I can't, I'm still on this. I still say there's a planning thing that's just not happening here, because when you think about it, if you're either going to pay now or you're going to pay big later. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If we have to do a hurry up kind of thing in 2030, we have to build a lot of infrastructure. But can you win a race on that? Is that something you can win votes on? You know,
well, actually,
construction, yes.
Well, there you go. Right.
You know, when you look at you know, typical voters in New Mexico, they're seniors. You know, folks over the age of 45. Right. And so, you know, it is a big election issue. In fact, Boston, for example, has had several elections that were determined by senior citizens.
That's right.
So I think it's a valid issue. I think the Sawmill, I'd never even thought about that project. But yeah, I think additional city planning could definitely help. Because when you look at our current retirement communities, they're kind of isolated.
Right.
There's not. They're kind of on the side. You know, it's like you get from point A to point B. Oh yeah, there's that senior center or a senior home. And you know, how many senior centers actually have senior homes?
That's right.
Around it. So
right.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point.
That's a very good point. Now, in the meantime, back to the original topic here. Let's hope our state and others kind of find a way to get this nursing home thing solved, because our vulnerable seniors need their help. And that there, when we come back to the line, we'll discuss the legality of the Department of Education's plans to reform our schools.